What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a film that was released this year that was a small release indie movie starring Michael Cera. And honestly, I saw the poster for this film, but I hadn't heard a lot of people talk about it. And I am a big fan of Michael Cera. I really enjoy his movies a lot. And especially when he works on indie films, I think that he always gives really great performances and he tends to pick projects that are really entertaining. And I was very excited to watch this movie. I hadn't seen a trailer for it or anything yet, so I went into it relatively blind. And the movie I'm going to be telling you about today is The Adults. The Adults is directed by Dustin Guy Defa. Eric returns home for a short visit and finds himself caught between reuniting with his sisters and chasing a victory with his old poker group. As the trip extends, Eric finds it increasingly difficult to avoid confrontation and revelations as his carefully constructed facade of his adulthood gives way to his old childhood conflicts. So, as I said, I knew very little about this film going into it, but I like Michael Cera a lot, and I was looking forward to checking it out because of that. And I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I do not think it is perfect. It definitely has some flaws that I think set the movie back from being really great, but I think it's incredibly effective at what it sets out to do. And it is a very, very simplistic film. And I'll talk about it a little bit when I break the movie down. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to Eric, played by Michael Cera. He's at a hotel room. He's talking to someone on a phone, and then he makes another phone call. And it's to his sister, Rachel, played by Hannah Gross. He is coming to town to visit his two sisters, Rachel and his other sister, Maggie, played by Sophia Lillis. And he wants to go visit one of his friends who just had a baby recently. And you can tell when he gets there, he's kind of reluctant to go visit his sisters right away. You're not 100% sure as to why. And he goes, and in the middle of the evening, he ends up trying to go to an old friend from school's house. The guy's busy, doesn't really pay a whole lot of attention to him. And you can tell he's really avoiding meeting up with them at all costs. And he eventually goes and meets his sisters, and we can feel that there's this sibling camaraderie, but at the same time, there's something going on under the surface where they're not as close as they probably could be. There seems to be something keeping them all separated. And the entirety of the film is Michael Cera's character navigating his relationship with his sisters while simultaneously going to these poker nights with his friends and really being obsessed with winning these poker games. And the film kind of juggles the two plot lines simultaneously. So as I said at the beginning of the review, this is a very simplistic film. It's not like super overblown Hollywood drama. It's very slice of life, casual interactions, and you're either going to enjoy that or you're not. It's very quirky, which Michael Cera gets himself involved in a lot of quirky projects, but I liked a lot of that. I think that the relationship that he has between his sisters and the way that it's conveyed on screen, it feels very natural. They have a lot of inside jokes together that you don't necessarily pick up on right away, but in a way that siblings would, and it's very well done the way that they interact with one another. They do these like voice impressions and they kind of joke around together, and I appreciated that natural chemistry between the characters a lot, and I think that has a lot to do with the really great performances. Michael Cera is fantastic in the role that he's in. Hannah Gross is great, and then Sophia Lillis, who a lot of people know from the It films, is really great in this as well. I think the three of them have a really great chemistry, and I say this in a lot of reviews because it always impresses me a lot, is even in films that are dialogue heavy, I really can appreciate actors that are bodily performers, that can do so much through facial expressions or like a glance or a touch. And that's what I really liked about the way they conveyed this relationship between these siblings, is that there's so much non-verbal communication that feels very realistic to how siblings interact with one another. And that was probably my favorite part of the film. I've grown up in a family with three siblings, and you realize when you're in a family and you have siblings that there are arguments and there are issues that arise, and there's a way and a rapport that you interact with your siblings that's very different to the way that you interact with just an everyday person. And I think the director really nails that in this movie and does a really fantastic job conveying that in the film. I do think that the movie gets a little bit caught up in the poker plot arc. It feels a little bit out of place, and I understood at the end what they were trying to go for with what it's symbolizing comparatively to the relationship with his sisters, but I honestly just didn't care all that much about it. It felt so forced in to pad the runtime that anytime it cut to one of those sequences, I was so much less invested than when it was with the sisters. I felt like that was way more interesting, and I thought the way that the rapport was established was better, and so that dragged the runtime down a little bit, was cutting to those sequences. And I think the main reason the director did it was to just kind of show how Michael Cera's character was reluctant to want to spend time with them because of that tension that exists under the surface between them. But I just felt like it didn't need to be there. The film would have still succeeded on its own without all that at the core. But yeah, aside from that, I thought there was a lot of really fun moments in this as well. I found myself laughing quite a bit at a lot of the goofy, over the top humor, especially when they were doing like impersonations with one another. I thought that was really entertaining and just felt very realistic to a relationship between siblings. Also, this movie's really well shot. The cinematography looks really great. There's a lot of intentionality in the way that the film is shot, and that's something that in these like small little indie films I can always really appreciate, is like you could shoot something like this very flat and it would still work, but because the cinematography is so interesting, it makes the movie more immersive. And so I was really appreciative and complimentary of that. And it's a short, simple, and sweet movie about a relationship between a brother and his two sisters, and it has a lot of fun moments. And if you're looking for something that has a subtle charm to it, and if you're a fan of Michael Cera especially, I think you'll really enjoy this movie a lot. I know some people call this genre like mumblecore or whatever, which kind of drives me insane. It's just because it's slice of life and people having casual conversations with one another, so that terminology has been coined. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but if you like films that kind of fall into that genre, you'll like The Adults a lot. So have you seen The Adults? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really entertaining. Despite the flaws it has, I still really enjoyed myself through the runtime, and I think it's worth a watch. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.